I'm the founder of Chibur. We build brands and products for artists and community organizations. And today I'm live with Nico Hodel. You guys probably know him. He's big here in the Entre communities. Definitely OG. Oh, and we lost Nico. I'm sure he'll be coming right back. So I'll give a little bit of an introduction on what we're going to be talking about with Nico today. Nico has been a founder for quite some time, focusing on his brands and businesses. He's a full stack web developer, programmatic marketing expert, and tech communications professional. He specializes in project management and JavaScript development using the React Native framework. And big fan of SEO-driven digital content development, which I was just talking to another founder about in another live stream, and also social media marketing. So lots to talk about and discuss, and lots of things we can learn. Feel free to raise your hand, come on stage, join us, hang out, and get some questions in. He has extensive experience in project manager roles, managing content marketing, web development, digital advertising projects for clients. He's currently the co-CEO of StartitUp, a digital agency offering startups and B2B companies an array of services, including an app development, digital marketing, and PR. And beyond that, he's also doing Rriter, which we'll get into, its content writing and copywriting services. So those kinds of things all kind of tie together. I'm excited to be chatting with him and take any questions from you guys that you might have as well. So Nico, why don't we just start with something more personal? You're in Hawaii. We lost it, Nico, again, which is a bummer. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. I would love to hear what you guys are working on as well, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for the questions, NASCOM. Good to see you. Yes, the stream is going live on YouTube right now, and so it will be up on YouTube when you want to watch that replay going back. Hey, Nico, are you there? Nico.
Hi, Miriam. Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. I just tried joining again from my phone here, my mobile device. So let's see if that works any better. I'm just looking for the option to turn my camera on here. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, yeah, no worries. That should be there. Take your time, figure it out. No stress. Trust me, I've had the craziest things happen to me during these live streams, guys, with technical things like streaming here and there, like audio, using someone on the phone, and all that good stuff. But please, it's good to see everybody popping in. Novell, love to see you. Hope you had a great weekend. Mr. Triplet, Nikolai, Jonathan, Rainey, NASCOM, Carl, Zara, Sargent, Ashley, Sasiska, please drop any questions that you guys have. We're going to be talking a lot about building apps today and growth marketing, Nico's plethora of information. So you can drop in any questions that you might have, or also come up and join us on stage. What do you think, Nico? And any luck with the cam?
I'm not seeing any option here, Miriam, to turn the camera on. Do you know where that is on the mobile app? Because I don't see any option here.
I do. It should be right next to the mute button.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that. It's very odd. So let me try again, just from my laptop. Just bear with us 1 second. Sorry for the connection issues.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, give me 1 moment here.
Yeah, no worries. Let me see if that other room had ended or not. Okay, great. Cool. Now I've got a ton of tabs open. Here we are. There we go. So one of the things that I find interesting and Nico is building these apps. When Nico comes back, we're going to talk about, when do you actually need an app and when do you not need an app? A lot of times that's like an idea you have. You're like, oh, I need to build an app. So we'll dive into some of those questions as well, whether those are really the way to go always. Hey, Nico.
Hey.
All right.
So hopefully we're good now. And yeah, just let me know if there are any connection issues as I'm speaking. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear from the audience as well, but I thought I'd just give some preliminary, tips and tricks, as well as some tools that are helpful from a development point of view based on my experience. I've been developing mobile apps for a long time, over 10 years now. And so I just want to, impart some lessons sort of from the trenches, from mistakes made as well. And so I'll start off by sort of outlining one helpful way to think about building a mobile application. And one thing that I find that many founders overlook is the value of your mobile application actually comes from the data that is being used to both run and also inform the user and community basis of your app. So, a lot of founders focus a lot on functionality of their mobile application, which is great. But what they should also consider is the data that is running through their app. And also from a development point of view, that's very important, because your ability to pass data between different functionalities of your application, different pages of your application, will also inform how well that app runs. And so fundamentally, it's great to think about mobile app development as a data transmission problem, making sure that data is being stored accurately, transmitted well, and also ensuring your data integrity. So making sure that there aren't errors in the data sets that you collect. And obviously, as an app grows larger, founders have the ability to do more with that data, especially now with a lot of the open source machine learning frameworks and tools that are currently on the market and very affordable. So the first thing that I'll talk a little bit about is sourcing data from the internet when it comes to building your mobile application, because a lot of founders have problems with sort of a chicken and egg scenario as they first build their application. They need to build the application that they have been envisioning, but they also need to populate that application with users. And you could have, the best app you could possibly imagine, but if you don't have people on it, and if you don't have data sources at the initial stages to enable those functionalities to be helpful, then you're caught in, the fundamental chicken and egg scenario that so many founders find themselves in. They might have a product, but they don't know how to get users, and new users don't necessarily want to join the application because there isn't data and there aren't other users already on it. And so, one of the ways around this is to source data from the internet, from, publicly available data sets and sources online. Mm-hmm. And you need to be careful with, the regulations around different data sets that you might choose to source for your application. But there are many data sets that are, released by state or federal governments, for example, publicly, or that are available online through the appropriate licenses that you can actually use to make your app more valuable. So if you had an app that was, trying to connect people in different spheres, you could source data from individuals that are active in those niches, and then populate your application with that data. So, one of the many tools that are out there today is a JavaScript framework called Cheerio.js. Kind of has a funny name, as so many development frameworks do. But this is just one of many tools that allow you to essentially scrape data online using JavaScript. And for people listening, my background is primarily in JavaScript development. There are equivalent tools that use languages like Python that are perhaps even better equipped to accomplish tasks like these. But Cheerio is great because it allows you to work within a JavaScript environment, and many mobile apps today are built on JavaScript. And so essentially how the framework works is that it allows you to map out and create data schemas of different web pages that use the unique identifiers of that data on the web page to collect all of that information into a database that can then be fed into a mobile application. And so essentially, it uses the CSS of the web page to identify what sorts of data you are looking to in your database. So to give a brief example, that might be the names of individuals, as well as their job description, as well as their areas. And each of those would have a unique identifier typically on that web page that is stored using CSS online. And Chibur just allows you to categorize that data, feed it into a database, and then populate your application using that data. And that is really a terrific way to get some initial data onto your application, either to use as a resource for users, or even to start to populate your application, like with initial adopters of your app. So I definitely encourage people to check out tools like that. Chibur works through Node.js, and it stores the information in a programming language called XML, which programmers will be familiar with, and it's very easy to work with. And so, there are many other tools that use different programming languages to accomplish similar tasks. There are also actual SaaS companies and softwares out there that anyone can use, even if they don't have a background in development, to be able to source a lot of this data. So a few that you may or may not have heard of include Clearbit, Rocket Reach, Hunter.io, which is one of the ones I've used in the past. And as an agency, we even use Hunter to develop leads, to reach out to prospects. It's basically a tool that allows you to scrape user information online, including email addresses and other contact information of different individuals. Another one that people should definitely check out that's slightly more technical, which also features an API, application programming interface to migrate data into an app, is called import.io. That's another really effective tool. All these are very affordable. Hunter has a free version that allows you to basically gain access to a pretty generous amount of data, and basically you can always upgrade to their paid platform if you want to increase that amount of data per month. And import.io, I believe, also charges based on how much data you're scraping, and offers a very generous free version. So I definitely encourage founders to check that out. Check out those tools, and to think about your mobile app as fundamentally a data-oriented product. So rather than just concentrating on how each screen looks of your app, which is very important, think about the data structure and schema, and how you're sourcing data, how you're populating the data on your app. The other thing I'll go over briefly is a lean app development stack that I tend to recommend for people that want to develop, agile applications that can be built quickly, modified extremely easily, and that use some of the most cutting edge tools, many of them open source, on the market today. So the first you can look into is React Native, which is a JavaScript framework that allows you to basically program apps using native code. And React was originally built by some Facebook engineers. It has a number of advantages, chief among them that you can develop an app for both iOS and Android devices using the same code base, essentially, and modifying that code base. So, in the past, you'd have to, essentially develop two separate, completely different apps for each operating system, and that's no longer the case today with tools like React. React Native offers some performance advantages over React for mobile apps because it allows the code to run natively, and also it provides greater customizability in terms of the front end of your app. React Native also has a really, really robust library and node package managers, basically, so that you can pull code from these libraries and use that to populate your app and to build out different screens of your app. So depending on how complex the functionalities you want to introduce, you may or may not have to do, a lot of coding from scratch, but React Native can definitely sort of limit the amount that you have to do from scratch. Node.js can be used with React Native, and that's a JavaScript runtime environment. It effectively allows you to use JavaScript to accomplish a lot of backend related tasks, and including communicating with the server. And that has really represented a big development in the space because, for a long time, JavaScript was obviously just used as a browser-related language, and that's changed considerably. Express is another framework that people can look into. It's one that I haven't used as much, but it's basically a competitor to React, very popular as well. There are a variety of node package manager commands that developers should familiarize themselves with, and that can really streamline the process of just creating an app and basically inserting some, basic functionalities into the app after creating it in a very automated way. React Native navigation, for example, is a popular npm command that can be used to quickly configure a basic navigation for a mobile application. In terms of compilers, check out Yarn. That's a very useful one. Can be used with ES6. And so, that can help out with your compiling needs. Babel is a transpiler for browsers that's very helpful. Very briefly, Redux is a state management tool that can basically be used with React Native and many of these other tools, including Node.js. And that can manage the state of your applications. And it can also make them perform a little better by not having to parse through a lot of the same code continuously. Firebase is another very useful tool that's offered through Google, effectively a cloud-based backend that allows you to, forego buying a lot of hardware and IT infrastructure yourself when you just want to get your app off the ground. Obviously, Google Cloud Platform and AWS are also, invaluable in terms of just getting your app out there quickly without having to invest in a lot of hardware. I will say that the main advantages of these frameworks are that they allow you to deploy from one code base, build native apps extremely quickly, and build in new functionalities very easily. So, because inevitably, as a founder, as a startup, you are going to find that you need to pivot and change your application, and you'll probably discover needs in the market that you didn't even know existed. And so building a app using more of a traditional waterfall method that requires large investments up front and huge sunk costs has a lot of disadvantages. And so keeping your app agile and allowing it to be modified and changed dynamically is definitely the way that I would advise founders today. Another thing that, as a founder, you should consider is if you're not building the app yourself, or at least not building the entire app yourself.
What did you say? If you're not building the app,
you're probably going to need.
What was that last? Because you said the other thing as founders is if you're not
building by yourself, then most likely you're going. Yeah, if you're not building the app entirely yourself, you'll need to ultimately search out a team of engineers, front-end designers, developers, etc. And a lot of people don't really know where to start when doing that. They're also weighing whether they can build out a team locally in the city or country in which they're based, or whether they need to work with developers offshore. And so some of the obviously primary advantages of offshore development is that it offers significantly lower costs. And I would even argue that it would deliver more value for money because many foreign countries have are basically ahead of for different cultural reasons. Educating, the next generation of software engineers in the U.S., with the exception of just a few schools and maybe some remote programs. And so other countries, have a really significant pool of talent and incredibly talented engineers that you can draw from if you are willing to work with developers overseas. Now, some of the disadvantages, obviously, working with offshore developers is that you need a local point of liability, basically. So, to give you an example, at StartitUp, obviously my business partner and myself are, based in the US, and any client that we work with is working through us, and all contracts, any sort of paperwork that needs to be taken care of is taken care of by us, by like the executive team based in the US. And so we represent like a local point of liability. Should any, go wrong, should the contract enter into any sort of breach, we are local and are held liable for that. But many people that work with developers offshore don't have a local point of liability. And I've just seen a lot of horror stories with developers simply disappearing, falling off the grid, not communicating regularly, not answering emails for like months on end.
Jeez.
And, as a founder, that puts you in a really difficult position because, how do you ultimately respond to that? You will have a really tough time, tracking an offshore developer down or going after them if needed in the legal system, should it come to that. And so, if you do work with offshore developers, you really need to have a local point of liability. And that's sort of how we built our agency, but it's true regardless of who you work with. If you work with an agency like ours or, another developer, you need to have some form of liability protection for yourself and for your product. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Obviously, another drawback of offshore developers is the communication barrier. And the language barrier. And I would encourage founders not to, underestimate that because it is a challenge to understand specific product features and requirements for someone that is not speaking English, for example, as a first language. Again, that's where having a project manager or a product manager, having a CTO, perhaps a technical co-founder on your team, really will pay dividends because that person or that team will be able to translate your product demands to the developers, which is in many cases a very difficult job, much more difficult than people would really imagine, because people tend to assume that developers will have a really easy time understanding what you're going for with your product because they are technical. But in many cases, the technical knowledge can actually come in the way of that form of human communication and interaction. And you don't want to end up in a situation where your developers are off in their own corner, nerding out, using all of these exotic, techniques and programming frameworks. And you are, in your own silo trying to communicate, fundamental things that you need from the product, or even worse, bugs that have appeared that you need to, fixed. So those are some of the things that I've seen in my time. And yeah, I mean, with that, I would, I guess open up the discussion and bring you back in, Miriam. Those were a few things that I thought maybe it could be helpful for people that are looking to, develop a product.
Those are fantastic. So much there that we can unpack, and questions already bubbling in. I know that you also, in addition to StartitUp, you also have another tie-in with content creating, because once
Yes.
you've built the app, then you got to figure out how are you even going to get traffic to it and users and things of that nature. So how is content related to your work with building apps and, SEO and all of that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the primary things that you want to think about, aside from actually building your app, is when you release it, you need to have a very detailed app store optimization strategy. Because what many people don't realize is that very large percentages of organic traffic that will reach your app actually still come from the Android Play Store and from the iOS store. So one of the primary ways, obviously, depending how much you choose to spend on advertisement, but regardless of that, one of the primary ways people will be finding your app is through searches on the App Store. for relevant keywords that are related to your app. So, App Store optimization is a complex topic, but one of the most fundamental aspects of it, a good place to start, is simply what you title your app on the App Store. You'll notice that like a lot of big apps, including apps like Amazon, for example, they do have keywords as part of the title of their app, not in a spammy way, but simply in just a descriptive fashion to explain, the primary function of the app. And that allows people that are searching for the
Looks like we might have a little frozen situation here with Nico. Nico, are you there? Well, while we're waiting for Nico to reconnect, I'm so happy to see that he's out in Hawaii. As founders, we often don't take this time, vacations and things like that. So it's great that he's out there enjoying his time, and I guess just a little bit of a shoddy internet connection. But let's go over some stuff about apps. Who in the audience knows? You can just put it into the chat, or raise your hand and come on stage if you're feeling social. What the #1 downloaded app in the world is? Take a guess. Don't cheat. Don't Google. Just take a guess. I am curious to see the responses from people. What app in the world is the most downloaded app? Which one do you think that is? Any guesses from the audience? And I will, as soon as Nico gets on, ask these questions that have come in, because I want to make sure that those get answered before we lose them again. Caleb is correct. TikTok is the #1 app downloaded in the world. I know, I love that app and I'm on it all the time. What do you win? You win bragging rights, clout, my friend, clout points. Okay, if I could give you Entre points, I'd give them to you. And I don't know if any of you guys saw that spicy little conversation happening in the feed of Entre about our point system. And definitely join the next town hall at 7:00 Eastern next Monday. We're going to be breaking down everything you need to know. You can ask your questions about the points and stuff like that. And big shout out to Caleb, who hosts Web3 Wednesdays every Wednesday here on Entre. Where is Nico now is the question. I'm wondering if he's going to be able to get back on with us and answer some of these questions. But some other interesting facts about apps that you may or may not know. Fact #1, there are 3 types of mobile apps that you can have. Native apps, web apps, and hybrid apps. And most apps are using like a combination of things. I'm reading all of this offline. By the way, this is not knowledge that I generally know. I'm pretty non-technical when it comes to this stuff. But fact #2, mobile apps are actually used more than websites. According to research, people spend 87% of their time on mobile apps. And mobile apps are considered a must for doing business today. So that's an interesting thing to think about. One of the questions I did want to talk with Nico about is these no-code solutions that are out there and becoming extremely popular, and what he thinks about building apps using no-code solutions. So hopefully when he comes back, we'll be able to dive into some of
Hey guys.
Hey Nico, welcome back.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry for getting dropped off, but the page just randomly disappeared on me here. Hopefully this will be better. I've actually just joined from my phone, so let's see if this works any better.
Yeah.
But really quickly, just to finish that thought, I was talking about internal linking when you're working on content and backlinking strategy. So those are things you should keep in mind. Generally, when you publish content, for example, on your blog or even on other sites, you should include 1 to 2 internal links to other pieces of content that you've also published. So effectively, you're creating a web of content that you have published and worked on, or that your team has, and that will sort of bolster the SEO of all of your library of content, if that makes sense. And aside from that, you also want to include authority links. So linking to websites with high authority will basically put your content into a network of high authority publications. And then obviously the backlinks are huge. So you want to develop backlinks from other sites to content that is published on your site to drive traffic and also to increase the authority score of your site. So all those things are really important. I'm not sure if I got cut off there, but hopefully the bulk of what I said, was heard.
That all came through perfectly, and really, value add stuff there. That
Perfect.
How do you find out what the authority sites in your niche are?
Yeah, great question. So there are many different tools on the market. Some of them paid, some of them free. We use software that is an enterprise level software called SEO Power Suite to do a lot of our SEO research. And that's something that's available to us because, as an agency, we can subscribe to that software and run it natively as well, and then use that for all of our clients. But it's not necessarily something that's realistic for a lot of founders. Mm-hmm. So for founders, they can definitely check out some other competing tools. SEMrush is a popular SEO resource, and they have some free tools that founders can make use of. So I encourage any founders to check out them.
Oh, looks like we lost Nico again, just as he was giving us some tips on finding SEO stuff for SEO. We're talking about content there. Kind of a bummer. We got to get him back here as we power through this live stream here. We're talking about mobile apps and how you develop them. How do you drive traffic to them? What's the importance of them? How do you go about doing it? And I do have some facts that we can continue to go through while we're waiting for Nico to get back here. The average smartphone user uses 10 apps a day and 30 apps per month, which is interesting. In February 2021, approximately 88.5 thousand mobile apps were released just in a month. That's wild to me. 88.5 thousand. And that actually is the lowest number of releases. Oh, hey. Just reading out some app facts. Interesting. February 2021, cool. Approximately 88.5 thousand mobile apps were released via Google Play Store. They're making it the lowest number of releases between March 2019 and February 2021, which is just an interesting little fact. Because it seems like a high number for me.
Oh yeah, that is definitely true. The app market is extremely saturated and competitive right now, and that's also why I always try to encourage founders to not to be shy to think about their revenue model early, because that's a mistake I've seen a lot. Is many founders think really deeply about all the functionalities that they want to introduce in their app, which is great, and I think that should be front and center, honestly. But you really should also think about how you're going to actually monetize the app before you even start to build it. That monetization strategy, it might change. You might pivot and realize that maybe your initial plan didn't make as much sense as you think, but you should at least start that conversation early with your founding team and have a go-to-market strategy that can allow you to make revenue, because you don't want to just be stuck continuously raising money. You want to build a cash positive business with your app. Ultimately, that should be your goal.
Totally. Well, that leads great to this question that we got actually from Nikolai, Derek. Startup app development can be very costly. Do you, Nico, work with the funding needed for app development? Do you do any of that when they go with your agency?
Yeah, we definitely have helped companies meet investors and connect with the investor ecosystem, particularly in New York. We used to actually hold 2 to 3 events per month in New York City, and that was much of the focus of those events was many investor panels, development as well, technical subjects as well. But we don't do as much work with that at the moment because obviously, so the events got put on pause due to the pandemic response. And so now, our day-to-day is almost exclusively just, doing technical work. We look to maybe get involved in that space again and get back into the event circuit in New York or possibly even elsewhere in the country before long.
Yeah.
But, one of the tricky things, one question we get a lot is, will you basically provide investor relations as a service? So make introductions to an investor, for example, and then take a fee based on that. So if an investor invests, we get a fee. We don't actually do that because there are some regulations associated with that.
Oh.
And we would, most likely we would need a particular kind of broker license in order to have a business model that works in that way. So that's kind of the primary reason why we haven't really explored that more fully. If we do connect companies with investors, it's not as a service, it's not as a fee-based arrangement. It's just to help, kind of build our brand, obviously, and then just grow the ecosystem, more broadly.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I think you covered this already in the intro portion, but we did get a question, so I'll ask it from Sasika. Hey, I'm interested in creating a simple website. I'm a former dev, but last 10 plus years I've focused on strategy and value delivery as opposed to hands-on development. Any tools you can recommend is appreciated.
Interesting. Yeah, I would say it really depends on the website, like what functionalities will be included. But as a former dev, I would say WordPress is a pretty modular tool that can be used to build simple websites. And there's so many plugins for WordPress that to the uninitiated can seem a little intimidating. But if you're a former dev, then none of it should really scare you too much. You should be able to leverage a lot of the themes and plugins, all the different tools that are available through WordPress in an open source way. And it's pretty. You can just find a hosting company like Bluehost is great. There's many others, and get websites working really quickly through WordPress and accomplish a great deal of functionalities just using WordPress itself, or even customizing WordPress themes. So you could perhaps start off with a WordPress theme that has some of the basic aesthetic feel that you're looking for, as well as some of the basic functionalities, and then maybe modify that theme to add on additional functionalities if you need to. So yeah, that's a great tool. If you're doing something really incredibly simple, then Wix is actually, they've come a long way. And I used to really hate Wix, honestly, but the company underwent like a change in ownership a while back, and now it's actually a pretty easy to use tool. Developers don't tend to like it as much because it kind of caters to like more of a non-technical user base. But I find it to be very easy to use for just incredibly simple websites. And they also have their own store for plugins, to just add on functionalities to websites. So yeah, I would say explore those too.
Those are great recommendations. I've managed to build websites on both of those platforms, and found it very easy to do so. And I know as well Wix does have a dev community, because they put me in it. I was asking so many questions to their support team. They're like, why don't you just join this community? And I was like, I'm not a dev. Like, that's awesome. I joined it, and then I couldn't understand all the things that were going on. I still just go to support. They're just like, I'm a headache.
Wow.
We see Chris Marshall in the room. Great to see you, Chris, host of the real estate rooms that is here on Entre. Let's Talk Real Estate every Monday with Chris Marshall at 1:15. Make sure you check that out. Another way to segment and put out get your passive income coming in. What is the best way to convert a WordPress site to an app? That's a great question that we're getting here from Ashley.
Yeah, that is a good question. So It really depends what the website is built on and the specific functionalities on the website. But there are many tools available on the market right now that are software tools primarily that specifically cater to transforming, for example, WordPress websites into applications. So you can find those tools online pretty quickly. I haven't used those tools personally because you can encounter some issues when you're migrating data and kind of transferring functionalities from a website to a mobile app. Generally, the approach that I take is the web apps that I work on are primarily in like cross-compatible frameworks, like React, for example. And so in that case, you can use a lot of the same code to basically deploy a mobile application. And that would be, you could do that in a few different ways. One possible way to go about it would be to deploy what's called a hybrid web application. So it's basically using the code of your web application and then just repackaging that into a mobile app. That's sort of fallen out of fashion a little bit recently as native code has become more popular, but it's still, is a strategy that works, that is very efficient, doesn't require a great deal of time commitment either. So yeah, I can't be more specific than that. I'm sorry. I've just never really had direct experience using some of those software tools. Mm-hmm. I know they're out there. I even had a friend of mine that worked for a company that was specifically what they were doing. They were just they ran a software that would just take your website and then just transform it into an app. Mm-hmm. But I just don't have direct experience using those softwares, since most of the websites that I build are kind of built in a cross-compatible way from the beginning, if that makes sense.
Listen, I saw this sick product on a product hunt the other day where you plug in any website, it scrapes it up and gives you a Figma file that you can then go and play around in it. So there's so many things out there nowadays. It's really,
that's cool.
It's very cool. So I've got a question here. And we've got some other suggestions coming in for you, Ashley, there. Thank you so much, Dallas, for chiming in with some of those ideas there for Ashley. Make sure you guys all connect in the chat there. So let's say, because a lot of people, right, they've got an idea and they want it to be an app. When is the time? Do we just come straight to Nico? Hey, I've got an idea. Boom, build me an app. Or do you suggest doing some of these other things before they go straight to investment into an app? Did we lose Nico? Did you get that, Nico?
I did, yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So in our experience, people come to us at a lot of different phases of their entrepreneurial journey, basically. So some people come to us when they just simply have an idea that they're pursuing. They might even have other commitments like a full-time job in some cases, but they also have caught the entrepreneurial bug. They have an idea that they're kind of fleshing out, and we're happy to have those conversations and try to help those types of people in that situation kind of flesh out their idea and provide some suggestions as well, provide some insights into things that they might have missed. For example, the revenue strategy. Right. As I mentioned earlier, that's a part that many people have missed. So we'll, kind of provide ideas on that. And the approach we've taken with building our agency has just been very collaborative. It's just been more around building trust and building relationships than kind of hard selling anyone on any of our services. And so, a lot of the people that we try to help out and, even introduce to different communities through events or what have you, some of those people will go on and become our clients at a later time. And others won't, and they'll just be in our network, and that's great too. And so we're more than happy to connect with people in that situation. For us, most of the people that we work with on an active day-to-day basis, they basically came to us with a pretty definitive idea of the app they wanted to build, and with a budget already procured. Oftentimes a bootstrap budget, or a budget from like a family and friends round of investment, or in some cases a Series A that they've already raised. And in terms of the people that we tend to work with on a day-to-day basis, it's primarily that group. And so we love to just connect with people at that phase as well, like when they feel that they are ready to take the plunge and invest in a product and just hit the ground running. So yeah, we do connect with people at any phase of their journey.
I'm so glad you said that too, and I can vouch for that. I've known Nico through Entre. He's so willing to talk to anyone about their idea, and can obviously recommend pathways to success or guide you, give you some sort of advice. You can connect with him right here, but we'll drop any other socials. So what about going through the App Store process? What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. A lot of founders make the mistake of really not leaving quite enough time in their timelines for the approval process when submitting to the App Store. And iOS in particular tends to be more picky with their specifications when you're submitting, and most founders will tend to have more denials from iOS in particular, just due to the way that the app is built, certain idiosyncrasies in the app, even the way that the code is organized can lead to resubmissions. And you use this, there are these different programs. So Google has the Google Play Console, which is effectively what you're using to communicate with the Google Play Store and to submit your app and to take any feedback from Google that you need to. Apple has this platform called App Store Connect, Apple Connect, and so that's what you're using with Apple to submit and to sort of field any feedback that Apple has. The submission process can be quite tedious, to be honest, because there are a lot of forms, and the forms for iOS take longer to fill out, and they'll ask like a bunch of questions about the company and the app. Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure that you don't give the app stores any reason to reject you. Like, one common thing is profile deletion is very important. So some founders will neglect to build like a function into their app that allows users to delete their profile, because it's just sometimes it's not seen as a priority. But that is one thing that will potentially get you rejected, in particular from the iOS store, due to primarily regulatory reasons. For example, in the EU, there's something called the right to be forgotten, and so for data privacy and protection, that's something that you'll have to build into your app. But that's just one example of many things that the app stores are looking for, along with more technical things that they want to see in the app. But yeah, I guess those are some general things that you can expect as part of the submission process. Definitely, I would just suggest leaving like extra time in your time frame, and just expect rejections, like periodic rejections. Like just factor that into your timelines. That's what we try to do.
Excellent. And I'm going to drop the socials for Nico because we are getting to the top of the hour here. So if you have questions, make sure you get them in. Of course, Nico's here on Entre. You're on vacation. I really appreciate you taking time, or like, I guess, working from Hawaii, but taking time to come and chat with us. We're getting another question here. Do you have any services or in-house strategy for promoting and marketing your clients' apps after you build them?
Yeah, we actually do offer a variety of marketing services, including campaign management of pay-per-click campaigns. That's something that we do work with. And I would say that the brunt of our marketing work actually is in the content area. So many apps that we build where our team will actively work on building out search engine optimized content after the app is built. And in many cases, we'll also be doing, ongoing SEO research. And then in other cases, some of our clients actually do have an in-house SEO person that will do a lot of the research, and then our team will fulfill much of the content. But we also do help companies with app store optimization, as I mentioned earlier, since that's often, a good first step before founders even begin investing budgets in content or pay-per-click campaigns.
Well, I guess that was probably a good time that we lost Nico right as he was wrapping up that last question for you, Dallas. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I do apologize for the technical things, and we'll be back again next week. It's going to be a great conversation that we're queuing up for you guys. Let me see who we're going to be bringing on next week. First week of November, we're going to be chatting. Looks like, do we have, maybe we're taking a week off. I'm traveling, so that might be that. But we'll be back again with another stream soon, and I hope you guys all have a beautiful rest of your day. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up in case Nico tries to pop in here. He can get back to his Hawaiian time. Bye, y'all. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness gracious, that was a long one.